Morning, guys. You're going to hear the goats in the back a lot. So these are my hotbeds in the backyard. They have an automatic watering system, and the reason that they're important to me right now is that they have all these seeds, garden seeds going. I have lettuce, I have Swiss chard, I have onions, all these seeds. Now, if I dismantle this bed, any of those seeds that fell into the bed are not going to come up and be vegetables in the spring. However, if I let them all go to seed and I let them fall into the bed, they will come up naturally in the spring when it's time to come up and flourish. And so this could be a perennial vegetable bed. This is another one. This one, however, has Alpine Strawberries and Tulsi, Kapoor, Holy Basil. It also has, what's it called? I'm trying to think. It's an antiviral, but I don't remember what it's called. That is going to seed. But this is my basil. This basil came up on its own from last year. It's self-seeded, and it is a basil, and we are Idaho, Zone 4, super cold winters. So, if I leave these beds alone, and instead of putting new soil on top of them, or pulling the soil out and putting it in another hotbed, I can have perennial basil, perennial onions, perennial Swiss chard, perennial lettuce. Now, they're actual self-seeding annuals, but they'll act like perennials. If I have them in these beds and I continue to automatically water them in the spring, what I would do is I would disconnect my hoses in the winter. I would leave the hoses in there, but I would disconnect the main hoses, drain them, and just leave them. Hi, cutie. All right, another thing I wanted to talk about is this lovely hotbed. It is my compost pile that we have been filling for almost 3 years now. We fill it with cardboard boxes, we fill it with pelts from after we butcher rabbits, and it just keeps sinking and it just keeps sinking. It is lined with old greenhouse plastic, and it's held together with baling twine. Just baling twine. However, it's blocking the new gate that I just put in. The reason I put the new gate in is that I want to consolidate my annual hotbeds back with the big greenhouse. What I have found is that all of my alternative types of beds, actually they'd be considered conventional by most people, all of my conventional type beds do not work as well as my hotbeds do as far as automatic watering systems and holding in moisture and holding in nutrition. So the metal beds that I showed you guys earlier this year, the metal garden beds, I have gifted them to a friend because they don't fit in my system. They're not big enough for me to put enough compost in for the water to be held onto, and Kaya was having to water them by hand daily. I'll show them to you. Alright, so this is my living fence now that we've trimmed it back. You can hear the goats, they're quite anxious. These were my low pallet beds with cages over the top. And they had garlic in them. So we've harvested all the garlic, these are done for the year. And they don't work well with an automatic watering system because they're made out of pallets. The pallets being made of wood mean that if I water with my automatic soaker hoses, a lot of the water gets absorbed by the wood instead of by the soil that's in between. So even though these work great, they're not as convenient, they're not as easy as my hotbeds, and so I'm not going to keep them. The reason for that is that my kids are the ones who do the chores. Well, I like to be out here all the time, in love with the nature, in love with the ducks, in love with the garden. My kids don't feel the same way. They want to get done as quickly as they possibly can and move on. So, we have done These are potato beds. They're old swimming pools with a wire around it to keep the ducks out, and we grow potatoes in them. They work so well, and they're so easy to harvest from. However, they have to be watered by hand because these little guys, it'll cost me a ton of money to get automatic watering systems set up in them. It's not worth it. All right. These are the metal garden beds that I showed you guys earlier. I'll try not to have your face in the sunshine. How did I do this? Oh, the pigs are so unhappy. All right, let's see how I can show it to you. All right, these are the metal garden beds that I showed you guys earlier in the year. Do I think they're fantastic? Yeah, they're great. However, they dry out quickly. They don't hold enough vegetable matter to retain moisture. And they're just not big enough to be worth my while. The hotbeds with the pallets are so big that they'll hold water for forever. And the roots can go down to China. This did grow us amazing cucumbers this year, but I have gifted it to a friend. And so we're going to give it to the friend. Because the more I can streamline this, the easier it is for my kids to keep things done, because all they have to do is lift up the handle on the pump to water all the hotbeds. All the hotbeds are connected with hoses and soaker hoses, and they're big enough to make it worthwhile. They produce enough food that it's worth it to buy soaker hoses and worth it to buy the hoses that run to the beds and connect everything, because when they lift that pump handle, it waters everything. All the hotbeds get watered. And when I say all the hotbeds, I mean the hotbeds out in the big greenhouse get watered too. All I have to do is run a hose and soaker. This greenhouse gets watered. That hotbed gets watered. I've got, how many hotbeds do I have? I have like 8 hotbeds that all get watered at the same time because they're big. They can handle the water. So wonderful. So what I'm eliminating is anything that is not a hotbed. We're not going to use the little pools anymore. We're not going to use the little metal beds anymore. I'm not going to use the low pallet beds anymore, even though they're great for my system, where kids are the ones who are taking care of the whole thing. It has to be automatic. All right, this is the Hotbed Greenhouse. For those of you who don't know, I do have the plans for all this stuff that I play with on the Etsy store. But this is the Hotbed Greenhouse. We took the plastic off and we put on a shade cloth. And then once it was adjusted to the shade cloth, I wasn't going to kill it. The sun here is very, very bright. It gets very hot here next to the house. And so we left the shade cloth on for just a little while and then took it off. So now it's full of parsley, dill, lots and lots of tomatoes. Why do I hear kittens? Kittens? Sometimes Mama has kittens in here. Pretty sure there's kittens in there. That's my jungle of tomatoes. These are my rain tree, nursery, elderberries. Arctic kiwi, motherwort, apricots. Those are only like 2 years old. It's amazing. Anyway, so this gets watered when that gets watered. When that gets watered. So I have a hose that runs up into this bed to a soaker. And I have a hose that runs up into this bed with a soaker hose. And then at the same time, I'm just going to walk you through it. Make sure you saw the whole thing. Blackberries. Okay, so the reason we had that gate was so we could get back here. This has not been watered in a long time. This gets watered every single time anything else gets watered. You can see it's going to seed. All right, this is the big greenhouse. This is the Tuff greenhouse, Tuff. And there we go. It is, I've already come in and cut so much of this. It goes to rabbits, it goes to pigs, it goes to us. And the reason I'm telling you all this, and the reason why it's a conundrum for me, is because the gardens that are furthest away from the house don't get harvested. This is the big greenhouse. It has so much food in it. Some of it's gone to seed, most of it hasn't. And yet we don't come out and cut it. The lovely thing is, because we have an automatic watering system, it doesn't matter. It still is alive. It gets watered every single day for 15 minutes. But I don't have to come out in the greenhouse. Nobody in my family has been out in this greenhouse in weeks. And yet it's still alive because it has an automatic watering system that wasn't expensive. It's just soaker hoses. And a normal hose with a 4-prong nozzle on it that just runs into 4 hoses that run down the length of the bed and keep it watered. So my problem is I want to put a hotbed greenhouse here that's going to be super big and wonderful. However, I'm concerned that because it's not in the backyard, we won't actually harvest out of it, just like we don't harvest out of this one. This is kind of a wasteland of permaculture. We have lots and lots of fruit trees out here. The geese live out here and eat all the grass. You can see everything's bare underneath all the fruit trees. Like out here we have some weeds, but underneath the fruit trees themselves there's no weeds. Everything out here is super, super, super happy, but neglected. Just super neglected. And we never come out here. And so what is the point of my moving all the hotbeds out of the backyard if we don't actually need the food? We haven't harvested out of the front garden. We haven't harvested out of this garden. We've harvested everything out of these teeny tiny little hotbeds here. So why change a system that isn't broken? That's my question. Why change a system that isn't broken? If you guys have any thoughts on what I should do, I find that everything I'm feeling right now just seems to be kind of like frozen because everything that I already have works. And so I feel really dumb changing it for no reason. But I also feel like it could be more efficient. It could be more efficient. It could be more effective. It could be prettier. And I don't know what that means or looks like without like destroying the system that I already have. So one of the reasons I want to put the greenhouse out there, a big greenhouse, is because of these guys. It's worked so well. It's worked so well. As the dirt sinks, the magic squares sink too. And so the rabbits are not getting out through the sides. Hello! They're digging down, but they're not going out through the sides. They seem to just really enjoy playing in the dirt that they have without trying to get out. And the bed is sinking, sinking, sinking. We can still get in there. The rabbits will still come out and say hi to us. We haven't put a male in there on purpose. What we've noticed is that them being in here, everything is composting. Hi, little one. I'm sorry, not paying attention to you, am I? What we've noticed is that them being in here is composting everything faster. It's sinking faster than the other beds, but it also seems to be just mixed up better and just composting faster. This used to be full of compost, like household waste type compost, and yet you don't see any of it. You see a little bit of wood. That's a big old piece of wood, and you see some wood mulch, and you see some rabbit manure, but that's pretty much all you see. Hi guys. So we've got 2 does in here to keep each other company. And we do not have a male in here to impregnate them. We just have 2 girls. And they seem to be doing just fine. That is their little shelter if it rains, but they also can just dig down and burrow, and they're fine that way. That was for them to use as a shelter too, and they just completely buried it. But how long have they been in here now, Paigey? I think it's been like 3 months. And it works really well as a warren system. What are you guys doing? Huh? Graham has a training collar that he's the stubborn one. Whereas where are you, Willow? Willow! Where's Willow? Willow! There she is. Willow listens better just to like voice. She understands when she's in trouble. So we can't put a training shock type collar on her because her personality can't handle it. But he needs one. But you can see that they're fine. She needs some water. It's getting down to the end of the year, and I need to cut the brambles back and put some more rabbit manure down for next year. The strawberries I put in here are doing just fine. Stop tipping your water over. Alright, I'm going to pick up some garbage. Hi, Mama. Okay, there's one of my soaker hoses. You can see it. See the soaker hose? Right there. Next to the kohlrabi. I'm going to see if I can get ground cherries. Ground cherries also to do their thing. But I need to pull up this tree because I don't want a tree in here. See these ground cherries? These are ground cherries. They're wonderful. They're so tasty. But if I eat them all, it won't self-seed later. Yeah, those are amazing. So, I'm going to leave those laying where they are. And I'm going to keep my bird netting over the top to keep the cats out because I don't want my cats pooping in my bed. Those are Alpine Strawberries, which are our favorite type. And, yeah. I've got clover in here too. Again, because everything works, even though it was done in a hurry without a lot of forethought, it all works so well, I struggle to take anything down. However, the way the hotbeds work is that you have to rebuild them every year. If you don't rebuild them every year, they're not hotbeds, they're just compost piles that you plant into in the spring. If you want them to be hot for winter planting, you need to build a new hotbed every year. So if I leave these guys to be perennial self-seeding beds, I need to leave them be. But by leaving them be, it means I can't fill them back up with manure. You get down. That is not okay. Thank you. Okay, can you pull that and go give it to the pigs? Mm-hmm. Oh, we got grapes too. Mm-hmm. Are they done?
I think so. If we got the right bunches.
Thank you. And that is the beauty of deep mulch systems, is you have this massive weed, but the roots are really easy to pull. So go give that to pigs. Yeah. Leave the water going for a while on those, Kaya.
Yeah, why is the gray hose on?
The gray hose is on because the ducks didn't have any water. So again, to recap, these beds are going to go. The swimming pool beds are going to go. The metal beds are going to go. I need to stop wasting my kids' time on chores that are not necessary. So we're going to leave everything as permaculture, as it already is, but all these little low beds are not going to be here anymore. There's the ducks. See if I can get to them. And the ducks are the way that the mulch works. The duck's going to eat the weeds that the mulch doesn't keep back. The exception is here. So this works more like a lawn. And I need to get in there and trim my forest back. It is quite the forest. This is my rain tree garden forest, my mulberry, my 2 apricots, my Chinese haw. What are you? Hey Paige, come here. You're tall enough to reach it.
Oh.
I don't know what they are. Are they plums?
Yeah.
So we must have had a plum branch make it on the apricot. Can you pick them without letting them fall? And then this is the massive elderberry that we got from them.
One of them's unripe.
Okay. And then this is the fig that we grew. And all sorts of other things like beautiful grapes and more mulberries and apples and walnuts and oh my. Let's see. Or a nectarine?
It's not ripe, but...
No, it's an apricot.
Yeah. It's a weird color for an apricot.
I know.
But they're not ripe, so...
Okay, so I need to go through here.
So I left that other one on.
And cut back. Thank you, honey. We need to cut back the motherwort. The other reason I need to get these hotbeds out of the backyard and these low beds.
A few flowers.
Yeah.
And the apricot's this way.
Well, I think I need to just cut it way back. I need to cut it back and let it think about things
A little harder.
a little harder because it is getting too tall too fast. Can you put up the black sled so that we know where it is?
Where does it go?
Just go put it inside the woodshed, but watch out for yellow jackets. All right, this is a cola plant. More tomatoes. This is a bed that I didn't even plant this year, and you see what happens. Neglect, neglect, neglect.
The sunflowers were from...
The sunflowers were from having the rabbits on it.